I paid my parents' taxes amp, mortgage for YRSBC. They promised to give me family's house, but now golden child sister moves in them amp, expects me to pay, so I surprise her. For the past 8 years, I, 32 male, have been paying my parents' property taxes and mortgage, $2,000 a month. They're retired and have very little retirement savings because they put all their money into my sisters and my education. We both went to top universities and found successful jobs afterwards. I felt like I owed my parents for all they sacrificed for me, so it was a no-brainer to help them retire without financial stress. My parents did not consult my sister about splitting these costs with me. Instead, the agreement was that I would get a larger share of the house. Fast forward to now, my sister, unfortunately, lost her job last year, and as a result, doesn't have much savings. She moved in with my parents to save money while she looked for a job. I recently discovered that my sister pitched staying permanently in my parents' house, and my parents agreed. I was furious because I've been paying for the house with the understanding that it would be sold and I would get a larger share. My sister will likely never sell the house and, instead, raise her eventual family there. Because the original agreement with my parents changed, I stopped paying for the mortgage, leaving it up to my sister to take care of if she was taking over the house. My parents are furious with me, saying I'm too money obsessed and should continue to help the family while my sister is in a tough spot and still looking for a job. Instead, they promised that my sister would eventually pay me out for my share of the house, plus whatever else I contributed over years. I turned that off down because there's no real guarantee this will happen, and I don't trust my sister to follow through financially. I may be the idiot for taking such a cynical stance and leaving my family under financial stress, but I feel like I was already burned once through verbal agreements, and I don't want to get burned again. Am I the idiot for not paying my parents' mortgage after my sister moved in? Edit. My sister fully opposes selling the house because of the sentimental value. I'm not on the deed because when you put someone else on the deed in California, your house is reassessed, and it will double our current property tax. There are also some implications to my parents' Social Security payments if I do so. I wish I had something in writing, but I felt like an idiot asking for something like that for my family. It was naive of me to think that way. 8 years of paying their mortgage and taxes just for them to flip the deal. That's unbelievable. Like, why should you trust your sister to pay you back when they've already messed with the agreement? Verbal deals don't count when it's this much money, and they obviously don't get how much you gave up to help. Honestly, let your sister figure it out if she wants to stay there so bad. You did more than enough. Not the idiot at all. Don't let them guilt you into more. The only idea is I see your parents were being furious with you, instead of grateful for all the time you've helped. Your parents didn't retire, they quit their jobs. A retiree is a person who has enough income from passive sources to be able to pay their expenses. Your parents never had enough investments to create income to cover decades of expenses. They spent all their money on college and whatever else, and still had high expenses, mortgage. At a rough estimate, you supporting your parents financially for the last 8 years has probably paid them back for all of their college support. Rough numbers, 8 times $2,000 times 12 equals $192,000. You're never gonna get any money from the house. Your parents will eventually sell it to help cover their expenses in their older years. The money will get spent. Stop giving your parents any money. Invest in your own name and future. You are the idiot. This is all around poor financial planning, but I think your biggest miscalculation was underestimating your parents' dedication to helping you and your sister. About months ago, my best friends Katrina and Elena and I had made plans to go to Vegas for our teen birthdays. Our birthdays are in a span of 3 months. We planned our road trip from Texas to Vegas. Originally, we were gonna fly, but they couldn't really afford to pay for everything we wanted to do and fly in such a short time. So I thought the next best thing was a road trip. We get to sightsee. It's cheaper than the way I planned to get there, and we just had the time. About 2 weeks ago, I was talking to my boyfriend about the trip, and it was brought up that he'd also never been to Vegas before. After a lot of thinking, I realized Katrina and Elena don't really know how to drive. And if we actually went on this trip, I'd be the one driving the whole hours. I don't know about you all, but I wouldn't want to be the only one driving 21 hours if I didn't have to. So I thought it'd be safer for him to be there with us, but I wouldn't have to drive that far by myself. Plus, he offered to pay some of the excursions we wanted to do and some of the dinners if he could as a gift for letting him come along. Of course I told him he didn't have to and it was unnecessary, but he insisted. When I told Kat I wanted to invite him, she freaked out and said that this was a girls' trip with no guys the entire time and to tell him no. She just wanted it to be us. To be honest, we never called it a girls' trip originally. It was supposed to be a celebration for the 3 of us. I turned a month ago, and I just got my license in the middle of December. Kat just turned 21 and graduated college early, and Elena just got promoted to work, so I really didn't think it'd be a big deal. After that conversation, I told them that I wasn't comfortable driving the entire way there, that it wasn't fair for me to drive by myself, and that I wouldn't go if he couldn't, or that we could bring someone else who could help drive. It had to be someone that I trusted to drive my car. They had no one else in mind, so my boyfriend came along. Unfortunately, during the trip, my boyfriend ended up paying for a bit of their things as gifts, even after I told him not to because they kinda kept ignoring him until it was time to pay for the dinners. Though he has the money to pay, I didn't think they deserve it for how they treated him. Now, they won't talk to me much, considering all three of us are roommates, and they told some of our friends that they're upset with me for being the girl who brings their boyfriend on a girl's trip, and that I brought him everywhere, and that us three girls had no alone time together, and that I don't care, and that I acted annoyed when they bring it up. Mind you, I am annoyed. To be honest, I just wanted him to be included while we were together. And sometimes he did stuff by himself and left us alone during the trip. And yes, we were all cool before this. But seriously, am I the idiot for this? You are the idiot. You will likely never have another trip with these girls again. To start, you invited a new person on a trip 2 weeks before, and didn't get the approval of the people already committed to the trip. Then it's not even another girl, it's a male, and your boyfriend is at that. It screams codependent, like you can't bear to take a trip without your boyfriend. You should have asked them about it if you thought they wouldn't drive, or better yet, fly and just skip out on some of the things you wanted to do. I'm willing to bet good money. You didn't even mention to your boyfriend that they didn't want him to come. So likely he was confused as to why they were angry at his presence, and he spent the money he did try to win them over. So you're also the idiot there for not being honest with him. I'll go so far as to add that I expect you phrased it in such a way that he believed they were okay, possibly even happy with him coming, and so was confused as to why they were so cold to him. Sounds more like you just wanted an excuse to bring him along, then you found all these other reasons to justify. You may be old enough to drive and drink booze, but you're incredibly emotionally immature. My 37 female wife and I, 36 male, have always tried to keep the housework pretty evenly split between us. I, for example, mow the lawn and do laundry and dishes, and she makes meal plans, cooks, and picks up, drops off the kids. Lately, this has all changed because she's become addicted to a game called Dress to Impress on Roblox. If you aren't familiar, it's a game where you must dress your character in a themed outfit before the time runs out, and the other players rate it from 1 to 5 stars. It started off harmless, just a fun thing she would do during downtime before bed, but recently, she's missed crucial appointments and chores because of this game. I tried to be understanding, a gently reminder to do a task, but she would always say she forgot or got distracted. The big argument happened last night when she forgot to pick up our twin son from basketball practice, which ended at 6 o'clock. I hadn't gotten home yet, as I had to work late. Now, our son doesn't have a phone, so I had no way of knowing the situation. I eventually got home around 7 o'clock and realized he wasn't in his room. I looked around further and saw that he was nowhere to be found. I walked into our bedroom confused to ask my wife where he was, and found her on her iPad playing the game as always. When I asked her where our son was, her eyes grew wide, and I knew what happened without her having to say it. I immediately got back into my car and went to pick him up. Luckily, his coach had stayed after to make sure he was picked up safely, and I apologized profusely. Apparently he'd been calling and texting my wife, the emergency contact, and she didn't even notice. When we got home, I immediately blew up at her. How could she be so addicted to a kid's game that she completely forgot our son? Now she's telling me it was a one-time thing, and that I'm an idiot for getting angry. I don't know what to think. I do understand her side of the story as it's only happened once, but she must be a responsible parent. She can't just completely forget about her child who cannot get home alone. So am I the idiot? She needs therapy if she's so addicted to a silly kid's game with avatars that she's forgetting her own real child. This is a scary and serious event for your kid. And, okay, maybe losing track of time, but missing the calls and texts too. That's insane. Not the idiot. Hope your kid is okay. He probably felt so scared and abandoned. Hopi, it would be worth getting one of those phones that can only dial certain numbers for your son, and change the emergency contacts to yourself, and another trustworthy adult, with an acceptable distance from your area just till she proves herself and stays off the game. I'm a mom and I'm a gamer, and I think I fit the category of gaming a bit much at times, but never have I forgotten my child. I'm way too anxious for that. To be sure, I have an alarm set, but several times I got to set it, and I never forget. Somehow, now before the end of school, my nerves already start to kick in. And to be fair, if that ever would happen, it will be the day I stopped gaming. Something else is going on with her. My wife and I have been married for more than 2 decades now. We have 2 children who are 18 and both in college. A couple of years ago, my wife admitted to cheating on me in a one-night stand. She said it was the worst mistake of her life. And she really regretted it a lot. Our marriage was going through a lot of difficulties at the time, and we were even seriously considering divorce. However, I never expected my wife to betray me like that. My wife had a lot of remorse and was willing to do anything for reconciliation. While I did almost file for divorce, I decided not to and to give our family a chance. And to be honest, it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. Strangely enough, that instant which pushed our marriage to the brink also repaired our marriage. While I did occasionally have days where I felt heartbroken and betrayed, those days were infrequent because my wife pretty much did everything possible to show how much she loved me and our family. I've also been friends with Vanessa since we were in kindergarten. Vanessa used to spend a lot of time at my house, and she became my adopted sister. Vanessa and I were really close and never once lost our friendship despite all the life changes we were going through. Vanessa was the best woman at my wedding. I was the man of honors at hers. My wife initially was insecure about the friendship because she thought from her woman's senses that Vanessa had feelings for me. However, after getting to know Vanessa, she realized that Vanessa was just my really close friend. Now, during the time my wife cheated on me, I did confide in Vanessa, and Vanessa recommended I take 3 weeks to take a breather and then make my decision. That was a great suggestion and saved my marriage. I told my wife about it, and my wife too was really grateful for Vanessa. Fast forward to today, and both my kids are in college. Last month, Vanessa reached out to me and asked if we could take a week-long trip to our hometown, where we would just visit our favorite childhood places. It would be a road trip, and we would just drive through the city and visit our high school favorite parks, restaurants, etc. This suggestion really excited me because I was feeling a bit empty since my kids left to college. I told my wife about it, and I expected some pushback. My wife expected me was shocked and said this was a romantic trip. I was taking with my girl best friend, and she was worried something would happen on this trip, especially because Vanessa was divorced. I told my wife there's nothing romantic about this trip. It's just a trip two friends are taking down memory lane. I told my wife I would never even consider this trip if she hadn't cheated on me 3 years ago, but she has to allow this now. I need a mental health break, and I still occasionally get feelings of betrayal from what my wife did 2 years ago. After a lot of discussions, my wife ultimately agreed to it, and I was really happy about it. Was I the idiot? I could divorce my wife, or I could use this as leverage to treat her like crap for the rest of her life. You are the idiot. You did not forgive and forget. You just cosplayed it until he didn't have to pay child support anymore, telling me about revenge without actually telling me. He might be good at lying to himself, but the truth smacks him in the face when he least expects. Marriage isn't fixed, cheating isn't forgotten. Boom. You, sir, are the idiot for pretending to bury something just to take it out of his grave the second you need a free pass? I really want to take this trip. It should have been enough. Instead, it's a man tantrum of I deserve this because you cheated. At this point, it's also an idiot move to stay married and pretend it's forgotten and forgiven. Exactly. You're taking this trip as selfish as your wife's one-night stand, perhaps even more so since it's definitely premeditated and have a much longer duration. Oh, and let me guess. 1 room? No offense, OP. You're a moronic idiot. You're destroying what purportedly had been improvement in your marriage. Resentment will rule the day. I have 2 daughters. Lizzie, nearly adult female, and Mackenzie, young teen female. Their dad and I divorced a few years ago after I discovered he was having an affair. I have the kids most of the time and their dad has them every weekend and during the summers. Lizzie has been dating Jacob, 18 male, for over a year now. Jacob is constantly at our house. He's a sweet, good young man, and I believe he'll be valedictorian of this class. However, I overheard Lizzie on the phone a few weeks ago with a guy clearly flirting. At first I thought it was Jacob, but then I heard her say Brandon. I realized she was talking to someone else. Then, a week later, she mentioned to me that she was heading out to hang out with a friend, and when I looked out the window, I saw her get into a car and greet a guy with a kiss. It wasn't Jacob. Even after that, Jacob continued to come over and hang out with Lizzie. He and Lizzie still acted like a couple, holding hands, laughing, and spending time together just like they always had. I felt disgusted knowing my daughter was being a two-timer. After Jacob left that day, I confronted my daughter. I asked her point blank, "Are you cheating on your boyfriend with another guy?" She said it was none of my business, and that her personal life was hers only. I told her she was wrong, and that I raised her better than to treat people like this. She told me she was bored with Jacob, and that Brandon was more her type now. I told her that she should just break up with Jacob if she wasn't happy. She said she didn't know she wanted to be with Brandon, or if she was just having fun flirting and teasing. I told her cheating was unacceptable and wrong, and as a consequence, I grounded her. I also told her she wasn't allowed to go on her senior trip with her friends. She, obviously, didn't take that too well, and has been at her dad's place for the last couple of days. My ex-husband called me saying I was being unreasonable by not letting her go on the trip, and that she and Jacob were just a high school thing. He then told me I needed to put my bitterness aside and stop punishing his daughter. I told him I was teaching our daughter right from wrong, and the actions have consequences. No, the idiot. Your story sounds like Lizzie is a daddy's girl, and he's been green-lighting her behavior. It may be time for Dad to take Lizzie most of the time, and you enjoy her presence during the weekends and summers. I'd hate for her to influence the youngest to behave in such unscrupulous ways. Good luck, OP. You're a great mom. Consider telling Jacob or his parents about Lizzie's actions. When I got cheated on, I wish someone had told me sooner. Everyone's the idiot here. She obviously stinks for cheating on her boyfriend. If she's bored of him or whatever, she should break up with him, but she needs to learn how to navigate her personal relationships from the natural consequences that come from her mistakes. When her boyfriend finds out she's cheating, you shouldn't be punishing her for it, but talking to her and hoping she learns. Otherwise, you'll probably learn to be better at cheating. What you're doing is wrong, and it will not work. Exactly. It would have been more valuable to have a conversation with her daughter about how much pain cheating causes. Taking away her senior trip is something her relationship might never recover from. It teaches her nothing about dealing with boredom in relationships. She's nearly adult. When is she going to figure out how to guide an almost adult's behavior?